National High School to interview a DepEd English teacher. So let's go!
Mom. I am Jessamine Bahian from St. Francis Xavier College. Our course instructor is conducting this activity, which is interviewing an English teacher under DepEd. So we are humbly asking you to these few questions.
It would be my pleasure to share with you my experience as a language teacher for my 13 years in service in the Department of Education. So whatever will be your questions, I will try my best to answer as best as I can.
Teacher Crystal, can you describe the current language policies that are currently placed in your classroom or in the school?
So since we are already now in the e-century, it's not really that we are required, but you have to cope with what is the trend all about. So in our class, not only language, but the rest of the subjects, we are advised and encouraged to make use of technology while having the class, because students now are very familiar already with social media. So if you are only just going to teach by making use of the books, the traditional way of teaching, which is the talk and talk, that is no longer effective to them. Watching videos, doing some activities that are differentiated will always get the best output from the students. So making use of applications such as Canva for your presentations, the OBS or the green screen for your lessons is always found to be very effective.
The second question, have you experienced any challenges in implementing the language policies, and what have you observed, and have you seen any positive outcome?
Challenges is always around the corner. It is normal, especially if you are young in the service. Since I came from PNU, I am not saying that other schools are not as good as PNU, but then our training inside the schools have already equipped us with how to face problems and difficulties while being in the service. Now, there are instances when you are given a task such as reports related to your subject area or doing activities which is not familiar to you, mangangapa ka talaga, no? Mangapa ka. But then, since you are already inside the field, you do not have any other choice but to learn it by yourself. So, say, I'm already 40, compared to those who are younger, who are really equipped with the knowledge in technology. Cell phones only comes out in the early 20s, and I graduated 2003, so I am not really well equipped in the knowledge of ICT. So what I do is I have to study by myself. That's the challenge. Now, if there is another challenge is our school is not as good when it comes to technology and equipments. We do not have all the necessary equipments. We have TVs. That's the basic one. As for computers, only computers are in the laboratory. Problem also is when we have, say, blackout or brownout, your plan will not be implemented for that day. So you must always be ready with your second or plan B. Or you should always go back to the traditional one of making use of the chalk and talk. So that, I guess, is one of the challenges in implementing making use of technology in delivering the language learning.
Third question, what changes should be made to better support teachers and students in the teaching and learning of English?
My answer to that question has something to do with the questions that you've given me on number 2, which is about the challenges. The problem that DepEd are now facing today, not only in our school, but it is the general problem to all, is that due to pandemic, we found out that there are students who have problem in reading who could already reach in high school. Now, the problem is we cannot go send him back to elementary because that's against the rule. They've already passed the level, the grade 6 level. When they came to our school, we found out that some of them are non-reader or struggling reader. They could not even identify a simple one-syllable word. Now, you were asking about what changes should be made. I say, if given the voice to tell all the executives in the Department of Education, there should be a subject which is purely about reading. Because reading is the most important aspects or skills a student should have, because all of the subjects will be affected if a student doesn't know how to read. How are you going to answer the questions if you do not know how to read? May it be mathematics, TLE, MAPE, social studies. The problem always go back to if you know how to read and if you know how to comprehend. So what we did in our school in facing the challenges and in the changes was we've created a reading program called Project Ready. In that program, we have a remedial reading every afternoon for those struggling reader students identified. As for those students who are instructional and independent, we also have the so-called Reading Fun Fair. It is a program where they are going to, for the whole day, there will be a lot of reading activities but in a fun way. Kaya tinawag siyang fun fair, or where this is also associated to the Project Tambayan that we have, wherein all subject teachers will facilitate the program. Their subject areas, the language that they use will be utilized but then should focus about.
For the last question, how would you ensure that every student are able to engage and understand, regardless of the English language as the medium of instruction?
Being an English teacher, especially you, that's why I'm asking Julian, are you really sure in taking up this major? I'm not really telling you that it's difficult, but then first, English is not our first language. This is our second language. We are not very fluent when it comes to English. I always hear my students saying, I do not like English because it's difficult. The same with, I do not like mathematics because it's difficult. The challenge is for the teacher, how are you going to make your students love your subject? That's the so-called multilingual and multiple intelligences activities. You have to get to the weaknesses and strength of your student. If your students are good in singing, then you have to give them activities singing related to your subject matter, so that they are not just only learning but also enjoying the activity. Another thing is you have to be resourceful. If you have to spend money just to entice your students, say this morning, Friday is, I do not have an English subject with them, but then as an advisor, I had to stay with them. So I had to have a trivia game in relation to language skills. So what I did is I have to make it as a game. I have to provide them a gift if they could answer. And they also suggested, Mom, if we cannot answer, we'll have a punishment. The punishment was to eat iba. Another thing is, we have the so-called item analysis. After the exams, you have really to check who is the student who has a lesser grades or lesser score. You have to focus with that one. Our school is, unlike some schools where you have the science class, the track sections, we don't have that one. So we have different students with different ability. So what you're going to do is you have to make ready with different activities. Say if he is an advanced student, he will be bored if you are going to repeat the same lesson all over again just for the sake or for the sake of those students who did not understand the lesson. So you have to prepare a lesson for him. You could give him a set work advanced than the others so that everybody will be able to understand. Your competency will be understood by all.
My group mates who are with me, Miss Julianne, Miss Katrina, Miss Kristen May, Miss Dart, and Mr. Aaron, and we wish to express our deepest gratitude, Mom, for accommodating us today.
It is my pleasure to be of help to you since I was a student like you. I do have this kind of project and it really is not a simple thing if there is no participation. No? So it would be my pleasure. Anytime if you wanted to have my help, I would be here always. I'm a student.
Thank you, Mom.
Okay.